The horrifying birth of poison gas began in the sweltering summer of 1914. The Marne front sprawled across a desolate, scarred landscape where the German army had ground to a weary halt. Weeks of brutal combat had drained their ammunition reserves to nothing. Soldiers crouched in waterlogged trenches, their boots sinking deep into the mud, their uniforms soaked through. Rain fell in relentless sheets, turning the earth into a quagmire. Hunger gnawed at their stomachs, and exhaustion etched lines into their faces. They stared across no man's land at the enemy, their eyes hollow with despair. Hope had vanished under the gray sky. That day, in a dimly lit laboratory tucked away in Haber, Fritz Haber sat in solitude, a tall, gaunt figure, his wire-rimmed glasses fogged with condensation. His hands trembled as he gripped a fragile glass tube. Sweat trickled down his brow, mixing with the dust on his face. The room reeked of chemicals. Chlorine sharp, biting scent filled the air, stinging his nostrils. "This war cannot drag on like this," he muttered, his voice a low rumble against the cold stone walls. A dark idea took hold in his mind, unyielding and sinister. Poison gas. He reached for a canister of chlorine, its greenish-yellow liquid hissing as he tilted it. With meticulous care, he poured it into the tube, the cold glass burning his fingertips. "With this, we will shatter them," he whispered to the empty silence. But whispers were not enough. He needed to prove it. A test was inevitable. The harsh winter months of 1915 descended upon Germany, bringing with them a biting chill. Haber ventured into a secluded testing facility outside Berlin, its concrete walls glistening with moisture. The floor was icy, each step echoing with a hollow sound. Inside, 12 young German soldiers stood in a rigid line. Their faces were pale, their uniforms tattered from months in the trenches. None wore masks. Haber's expression was a mask of its own, blank, emotionless, his eyes obscure behind those fog lenses. In his hand, he held a rusted key, its edges worn smooth. "Prepare yourselves," he said, his voice steady but icy, cutting through the damp air. The soldiers exchanged uncertain glances, their breaths visible in the cold. They nodded, unaware of the fate awaiting them. Haber inserted the key into a valve on a metal tank fixed to the wall. A faint click broke the stillness. He turned it slowly. The valve creaked open with a groan. A yellow gas began to seep out, first as a delicate mist, then swelling into a thick, suffocating cloud that filled the room. The first soldier coughed, a sharp, guttural bark that echoed off the walls. His throat burned, his hands clawing desperately at his neck as he gasped for air. The second staggered, his knees buckling under him, his eyes turning a deep, unnatural red, veins bulging. 3 seconds ticked by. The chamber fell into an eerie silence. All 12 lay sprawled on the floor, lifeless. Haber stepped forward, his boots thudding against the stone, the sound reverberating. He stared at the fallen soldiers, his chest tightening. His pulse raced, then steadied into a cold rhythm. "The experiment succeeded," he murmured, his voice barely audible, as if the words weighed him down. Yet, in the depths of his mind, he knew this gas would not choose sides. It would kill anyone it touched, ally or enemy. Haber's resolve pushed him to carry this weapon to the front lines. It was April 22nd, 1915, a crisp and foggy morning at the Ypres front. The air was thick with the scent of damp earth and the faint tang of gunpowder. German soldiers huddled in their trenches, their hands slick with sweat, their breaths forming clouds in the chill. Haber, with a steely gaze, oversaw the careful placement of dozens of canisters, each brimming with that deadly yellow gas. "Now," he commanded, his voice slicing through the morning breeze. The valves were turned. A yellow cloud unfurled, rolling steadily toward the French and British trenches. The first soldiers inhaled. Coughs erupted, harsh and ragged, then morphed into desperate gasps. Screams tore through the stillness, high-pitched, unending. 5,000 men choked to death, their lungs flooding with fluid, their bodies convulsing. 10,000 more staggered, their eyes scorched blind, their skin blistering and peeling away. The sky above Ypres transformed into a sickly yellow veil, a grim canopy over the battlefield. Haber watched from a distant hill. Binoculars pressed his eyes. He saw triumph in that cloud, but the wind betrayed him. It shifted abruptly. The gas curled back, seeping into the German lines. Their own soldiers fell, suffocating in the poison they had unleashed. Haber's face froze, his jaw tightening. Was this a miscalculation? He thought, but no answer came. The gas had slipped beyond his grasp. The war reshaped itself beneath the shadow of chemical warfare. The French raced to develop countergases, their laboratories alive with frantic activity. Scientists working through the night. The British crafted rudimentary masks, stuffing them with coal filters, their soldiers clutching them to their faces in a desperate bid for survival. Yet the gas was omnipresent. In 1916 at Verdun, it hung heavy in the air, seeping into every breath. In 1917 at Passchendaele, the mud itself became a carrier, mixing with the poison to create a deadly trap. Chemical warfare ravaged both sides, leaving scars that would never heal. Haber retreated from his laboratory in 1918. His face was gaunt, his eyes sunken into dark hollows, his hands shaking uncontrollably. "I saved humanity," he once declared, his voice breaking under the weight of his own words. But the truth gnawed at him relentlessly. That gas had ended millions. By 1918, chemical weapons in World War I had claimed 90,000 lives. The wounded stretched into the millions. Hospitals overflowed with the blind, the burned, those who could no longer draw a breath. The gas left its mark on the trenches, the villages, the cities, its legacy etched into the earth. Was Haber a hero or a murderer? History bestowed upon him both titles, and he carried that burden until his final days, the gas remaining the war's most sinister inheritance. For more stories like this, subscribe, like, share, and meet us in the comments.